Hi, my name is Hrishi Giridhar. I'm a composer and producer based in Mumbai, and you're watching me from Radio City Freedoms from my studio. We're here in my studio, if you can call it that, but it's like a nice simple home studio that I set up. I actually set it up pretty recently, about 2 years ago. Before that, I sort of had a laptop and a sound card, and I used to wait till night time to record my stuff, and it was all crazy. And as work started picking up, I realized that I just needed a space, and so it was a long journey. I did a lot of research about acoustics, spoke to a lot of friends, sound engineers, other musicians, and all of that. And it was a fun little project, and I finally came up with this. So the studio is really nothing fancy. I've not fully soundproofed it or anything. All I've done is put up panels so that at least I get decent sound from my producer spot over here. And these panels as well, I made them, like, I didn't even buy them. I got them made from like a carpenter and all of that. And what I found was that it gave me flexibility to decide where I wanted to keep the panels, how big I wanted them. I got to like panel up my windows and all of that. So that was like a whole project in and of itself. Learning about acoustics and stuff like that. And once I got that done, it was just about making it pretty, getting the flooring done, getting the walls painted and all of that. But apart from that, really what I mainly use is my Mac Mini, my speakers, which are Kali LP8s, and that's pretty much it. And I have an iPad which I use as a controller and I use as an instrument and stuff like that. But what I really like is that you don't need fancy equipment or expensive equipment or the most high-tech stuff to really make music. All you really need is a laptop and a keyboard, and you can create a hit record. I mean, look at like Billie Eilish or whatever, and she became famous by making stuff in her room with her brother. So really that's pretty much it, and we can talk more about the equipment I use, and I have some stuff, but mostly it's just what I mentioned. Having a home studio is so beneficial when it comes to meeting deadlines. Sometimes you get a call, especially when it comes to ads or jingles or anything of that sort, you get a call saying, can you send me something in the next 3 hours? I don't know how people did it without home studios. I can say yeah, and I'm sitting in my studio, I can just get to work right away. Often I'll get feedback on scores late at night, and we'll have to submit something the next day. And I can just sit at home and maybe have an all-nighter and finish it and all that kind of stuff. And it's just so liberating to have something right at home to sort of work on your tracks. When I was working on my most recent project, which was Masoom, I was working on the score for one of the episodes. And I was sitting with the director, Mihir Desai, and we were trying to figure out, we were working on the score and just discussing musical aspects and musical elements. And at one point, we really needed very raw vocals, as if it's coming from a Gurudwara. It was diegetic music coming from that scene, and we didn't have a vocalist, and Mihir was like, I'll sing. And really we could just set up the mic, and he just sung, and we sort of edited it, and we made it sound as if it's coming from the Gurudwara. And Mihir had a funny point. He's like, man, like, we're working on a show for Hotstar, and it's like this is like a college film. But I mean, it was fun. It was all fun, but the point is that with the flexibility of a home studio, you can just do this kind of stuff. You have the time, and you don't have to worry about the clock ticking, and you don't have to worry about, there's an engineer, or, we have to wrap up, or money is getting wasted because we're wasting stuff, because there's total freedom to really do whatever you need to do. And we were having the same discussion, like, how did people even work without home studios? And so I think nowadays pretty much every composer, every producer, everyone I know who works professionally has a home studio of some kind, some sort or the other. And it just gives you the freedom to do what you need to do without stress or worry or time or pressure or anything. So, okay, let's talk a bit about my equipment. I use Kali LP8 monitors. Very good in my opinion. Obviously they're not the fanciest monitors in the world, but they do the job, at least according to me. I use a basic like Arturia Keylab keyboard. Again, nothing fancy. My most recent purchase though is the iPad, which I'm loving. Just having an iPad, I use it as a controller, and since I use Logic, Apple has a feature called Logic Remote, which allows you to which allows seamless integration between your iPad and the DAW and all of that. And so it's so much fun to control, to even move faders, to do automation, to draw automation, all sorts of stuff using just the iPad. Along with that, Apple comes with, you can download a whole bunch of iOS synthesizers, apps like GeoShred, all of that kind of stuff to get fancy sounds which come in handy during scoring and all of that. Most importantly though, I love having instruments at home, and you can probably see some. I have a mandolin over there, and I have a dotara over there. And I also have so I'm primarily a guitarist, so I have the nylon guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, ukulele, guitar lele, all of that stuff. And I love having instruments all around. Those cupboards on those side cabinets are basically filled with other sorts of percussions, castanets, shakers, tambourine, kalimbas, all sorts of stuff. And I find it really useful to be able to pick up an instrument and play it rather than trying to find a plugin or a VST or something like that and try to program it. And I don't necessarily play these instruments particularly well, but just enough to do the job. I mean, I play the guitar, but the rest of them, I just play them well enough so that I can record them and sort of get the job done. And it's fun for me because it's faster, and it allows me to have full control over what sound I want. And also I don't need to depend on a third person to come in and record and all of that. So I'm a big believer in recording your own instruments and keeping everything as analog as it needs to be. And I have a lot of fun doing that as well. So in Vichida, which is one of the songs from Masoom, we actually recorded a lot of instruments live. The song starts with this mandolin and acoustic guitar riff, which sounds something like this. And I really like stacking plucked instruments like this. I find that it brings out the character really well. And I also really like using analog sounding synths. Like there's a synth I use a lot called Diva by the company Yuhi, which sounds... And I love all of these cool sound effects. I find it really fun to mess with synthesis, even this bass synth. But apart from that, we recorded this percussion player called Kahan Shah, who recorded a whole bunch of percussions. And okay, of course, we recorded tabla, which sounds something like this, which in context sounds like this. And by the way, all of these percussions were just recorded from this home studio. We didn't have to go anywhere. I just called him at night when it was nice and quiet, and we set up the tabla on the carpet or whatever, and we spent the night doing that. So I started producing music way back when I was a teenager. I wouldn't say I was particularly good at it back then, nor did I take it particularly seriously because I was also studying at the same time. But it was when I first started this little YouTube channel with my friend where we made covers, and we needed a way to have good quality audio without spending money to go to a studio and record all the instruments. Way back then we had a little laptop, and I had a trial version of Cubase, and that's where we sort of got started. And since then I realized that really I can't get anything done in life if I don't know how to produce and mix and whatever my own music. Because otherwise you're always dependent on someone else to get something done, which is a serious handicap in my opinion, especially if you work projects that have time constraints or budget constraints. You can't always depend on another person for your own project, because it'll always be an issue. And on top of that, always depending on another person will mean that you might not always see your vision realized in the way you imagine. Not that, I love collaborating with other people, and it's great to have other people work on your projects, but sometimes you want control of the fine details in your own songs or your own tracks, and being able to produce is just a huge freedom in my opinion. And getting into production has absolutely helped me as a musician as well, because I used to be just a guitarist, and so I'd play guitar very much like a lead guitarist or whatever. And as I started producing, it really helped me understand the role of instruments like the guitar, but even every other instrument within the song in terms of frequency and space and dynamics and movement and all of those sorts of categories. And it helped me sort of learn how to play the guitar in fact, or relearn how to play the guitar from a producer's perspective or from a more musical perspective, rather than maybe trying to fit in licks everywhere and kind of show off or whatever, if that makes sense. It's helped in many ways, even in terms of, because when you produce, you also in some part learn how to mix, maybe not like a mix engineer or like a sound engineer, but you do end up learning about frequencies and space and all that sort of jazz. And overall, it just helps you make better music, to be honest. It helps you make better music. It helps you have a better judgment, what you need in a track to make it better, or maybe what you're missing. So I work in three main areas of music. One is production of like songs and tracks. One is scoring to picture or film, and the third is scoring to ads or making jingles and stuff like that. And the process definitely varies. When it comes to producing people's tracks, really you're taking the composition and understanding the meaning of the composition, and also understanding the direction that the composer has in mind, and then sort of bringing it to life. You're taking like a wonderful vocal melody, trying to see how best to enhance it and how best to support the melody. And so that's really a pure producer's job. Or in other words, it's like a solely production job, and that's where I'm only producing. At times you'll end up composing maybe hook lines or instrumental hook lines or intros or interludes and stuff like that, but most of the time it's just trying to add instrumentation and to arrange and stuff like that. However, when it comes to scoring and when it comes to making ads, I mean, we can start with scoring. If you want to score a particular scene, it is inherently a composition job, because you're trying to compose music that fits to that particular picture, particular scene. But you can't do that without knowing how to produce. It is literally impossible, at least in my opinion, to be able to compose to a score without also having at least some basic knowledge of production. Unless you are the type of scoring artist who does everything completely orchestral and you notate with sheet music your violins and violas and cellos and horns and all of that, and you get a 50-piece orchestra to record your score. Unless you do that, I don't see how it's even possible to score without knowing how to produce, or without having a DAW, having a studio, and being able to actually lay down the ideas yourself. And especially when it comes to hybrid scores, which use synthesis and like, all sorts of blends between electronic and orchestral and all of that. You need to know how to produce to bring your vision of your composition to life. Even if you just want a pad in a particular spot, you need to know which plugin, what type of pad. You need to be able to create that pad with your synth. And you need to be able to have the knowledge of subtractive synthesis and create the sound that you want. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please do like and subscribe to Radio City Freedom on YouTube, Instagram, and all the social media handles for more content just like this.